Welcome everybody to our first ever Zoom presentation of our Rightsizing and Moving really event, I guess. Usually at least twice a year, Westminster Village likes to host an event on rightsizing and moving, or downsizing, whatever word you want to use, because it gives you some great information, a little bit of motivation to get started, even if you're not moving right away. You know, it's still a good motivation to clear out some of the clutter in our homes and prepare ourselves for a future move. Right now, you know, we're all stuck at home, and I'm sure that a lot of you have done some downsizing. We had a shred day a couple of months back to allow you to get rid of some of the paper from your home. So now it's time to talk about some of that bigger stuff that's surrounding you, collections and photos and things that are around us, and what are we going to do with those things next. And so hopefully this webinar will provide you with a little bit of motivation to take the next steps and tackle some of those bigger things. We have some guests with us who are both experts as well as residents, you know, folks who have been through this and can give you their advice on how to move forward and what to do. So I want to, first I'll quickly, let me get you to our agenda. Our guests are John Morris is here with us. He has a moving and auction company called Transitions. So we're going to hear from him, as well as two residents. Mr. Jack Newman is here. He's a villa resident of ours here at Westminster Village, as well as Ms. Betty Griffin, a brand new resident here at Westminster Village. And then an adult child, Ms. Marie Thies, is going to join us and share the experience, share her viewpoint on the moving experience that her father had as he made a transition to Westminster Village. So we're going to hear from all those people. And first off, I'm going to show you a couple of photographs here. Anybody have a wall at home that looks like this, or had a wall at home that looks like this? With pictures, things, and needing to find space. How about, and collections? Lots of collections. People like to buy gifts for us once they find out we're collecting something. You know, you stop receiving them, right? I know some of these things are the hurdles that are before us and keep us from making that move, you know, move on or our lives. I actually did some research. I'm going to stop the screen share there. I actually did some research and found that the average home has about 300,000 items in it. That's a lot of stuff. So no wonder we feel a little bit paralyzed by that, that idea of kind of downsizing and moving to a smaller space. But in addition, you know, I think as we age, we certainly recognize that it becomes physically harder to do that. You know, where we might have been able to kind of load up and lug around a bunch of boxes and run them up to the, you know, Goodwill for donation. It's harder to do that as we age, and it's a much bigger project. We don't necessarily have all of our family members around close any longer. They've all kind of grown and moved away, so we don't have a lot of that muscle around to help us. And we also secretly hope that our family will want all of our things, and maybe that's the case, and maybe it's not. I'm sure John has some experiences he can share and advice he can share on that. But Jack, you know, Newman, you and Bev moved into a villa here a couple of years ago now, and you know, you figured out a way to get over that hurdle. And so I hope you'll share with us how you approach that big task.
Well, I think the first thing you need is a plan. You know, when you're thinking about moving to a retirement community and you think of all the things that need to be done, you know, downsizing, selling a home, a lot of other things, sometimes it's so overwhelming, you just end up doing nothing. But if you break it down into segments and put together a plan as to how you're going to approach it, it just makes it so much easier. And so you're asking what Bev and I did, how we went about this. Now, I don't consider myself an expert on it, but we do have some experience, and what we did worked very well for us. Bev and I were both in our second marriage, so we had accumulated a lot of stuff over the years. So we agreed upon how we wanted to approach it, and this is what we did. First of all, I told my children, who are grown, they're well established, that we had made the decision to move towards moving to Westminster. And before we started downsizing, was there anything they wanted? And if there was, when I was ready, and if it was something I was going to get rid of, when we made the move, I would give it to them. Bev told her kids the same thing. Well, you know, they're all well established, and they came back and said there wasn't anything they wanted. So it was go on the plan. So we moved ahead. We actually put things into 4 categories. That which we intended to take to Westminster, that which was worth some cash and was worthy of trying to sell it, that which was worth a little less and that I was going to send to auction, and that which was still usable but not worth the time of putting a lot of effort into trying to sell it for a small amount. And that we were just going to donate to charities, such as Goodwill and the Salvation Army. So the first thing we did was clean out our attic. We moved it all down to the garage. We donated everything to the Goodwill, a full truckload, 1,100 items. And do you know, we haven't missed a thing. It was stuff we hadn't used for years. We did not miss a thing. Now, the things that I thought were of value and worthy of putting some time into, I went forth and started listing them on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace. And if I couldn't get any interest on an item right away, I would move that over to the auction pile. You know, but I sold a lot of items on through those two outlets. And one of the items I sold was a baby grand piano. So it was amazing the success that we had on that. If you do move in the direction of selling stuff on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace, I would just give you a couple tips. You know, you might not want to do it, or maybe someone in your family can do it, but here's a couple things you need to follow. Always stipulate that you'll sell only in person and for cash. Do not take any checks. That's a good rule to follow. And some people don't want people to come to their home. Well, the way I handled that, I would meet people in a public place, like a gas station. And I sold a lot of things at the gas station. But I found most people are honest and trustworthy, but there are scammers out there, so you do have to be careful. But I sold a lot of stuff through those outlets. Some people like to use the auction, and I sent some things to auction. I probably didn't like that outlet as well as other people I know. And the main thing is I lost control of the item and what I was going to get for it. But it is a quick way to move items because they haul it to the auction, they send you a check. So if you just want to downsize quickly, that is really the quickest way to do it. Some people like to have garage sales. I'm not necessarily one of them. A garage sale is a lot of work, and you usually sell off the best items, and then you got about 80% left that you got to put away or donate. And I just found it was easier just to donate those items. And if you're in a tax bracket where you can take the write-off, then that works too. So we worked very hard for several months, well ahead of thinking about selling our home. And we were just downsizing. Every day we were working on something. So before we knew it, we were down to the size we wanted to be. So when the opportunity opened up to move to Westminster, we were there. we had just about what we needed to take to Westminster. And all along this time, we were also sort of working on our house, getting it ready to sell. But I vowed not to put the house on the market until we had moved, because I wasn't going to get caught in the crunch. So once we made the move, I put the house on the market. First person that looked at it, it was a cash buyer. We sold it, closed in 12 days. And I know a lot of people say, boy, are you lucky. And there might have been some luck involved, but actually, that was the plan. You have to have a plan first for a plan to work. So I would just say, plan how you want to go about it, break down the project of thinking about and making a move to Westminster, and it just gets easier. And remember, the future is going to happen. And whether you plan it or not, it is going to happen. And if you plan the move and you end up downsizing, selling your property, and making the move, it just makes it so much easier when you do it based on what you want to do and not based on being forced to make the move. So that's what we did. It worked for us, and we love it here at Westminster.
Yeah, moving, I mean, you did it on your terms, it sounds like. You knew what you wanted to do. And when you kind of keep your energy and focused on that end and focused on your plan, the plan came together.
That's right. Yeah, and the plan doesn't always work exactly how you laid it out, but at least it keeps you moving in the direction you want to move.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Also, you spent a lot of time, I know, on things like Craigslist selling items and the Facebook Marketplace you mentioned. But I know there are a lot of people out there who are timid about that kind of thing. I mean, you gave excellent tips, of course, on how to kind of protect yourself and stay safe. But some folks just are, or maybe don't want to put in that don't have the time or don't want to put in that time to handle the items that way. So I would imagine, John, that's a big reason why you have the auction side of your business. Is that right? And tell us more about your caring transitions.
Correct. Our auctions, we do them online. We have a huge audience. We get people's items out in front of several thousand people, and we get good, fair market value out of items. And I know what Jack was talking about, some of the bigger ticket items, they are scary, letting it go to the highest bidder, but we can put reserves on things that we need to, and people still keep control of that high ticket item.
Okay, well, that's interesting. That's one good way to kind of solve that problem. But yeah. So what about, right now when folks make a decision to move to Westminster Village, or even before they do, they can meet and consult with you about their downsizing and moving process and what that could look like. What kind of information do you share with folks, and what does that process look like?
Well, one of the first things I like to say, kind of building off Jack's, what he talked about, is don't throw things away until I come and see them, because what you think is an old radio could be a great collectible that we could get a lot of money in our online auction for. One of the first things we talk about is space planning and the things that they love and the things they want to keep. And we try to work on making a spot for those so that they can keep those things. And then we look at the things that they don't want and the best way to sell them. Or we've helped deliver things to family. We ship things to family. So we can do all of that.
Speaking of giving things to family, what do you find when it comes to that question? Does family typically want the stuff or not want the stuff?
Well, I tell you, the younger kids really don't seem to want the china sets or the silver plate. I've tried to give my great-grandmas to my daughter. She does not want it. They like to go to Outback or have food delivered, and they don't like to do dishes. And if they entertain, I think they like to do paper plates and things like that.
And how did you get into this business? You haven't always done moving for seniors, have you?
No. I started out, I was a nurse for almost 30 years, and I loved it. I really did, but I had a little bit of entrepreneurial spirit going on. So I started looking at different small businesses, and this one popped up, and I just really loved the caring part. Plus I love the part with selling the collectibles and getting out and doing that the caring part is what I was trained for. So it was really a good fit for me.
How do you, so when it comes to the move day or the physical move process itself, I guess, tell me a little bit more about how that works. How do you approach the packing and the moving and unpacking?
We like to get things packed and get a plan in place so we know what we're going to take and where it's going to go, and then we'll have a moving team come in, and we usually do it pretty quickly. I like to get a place so people can, if they want to come, that they have a place to rest while we're unpacking. And so we'll usually start with a bed, or if they have a favorite recliner that they like, we'll make sure that we get it moved and ready for them while we do all the work.
They can sit there and kind of tell you where things go, right?
Exactly. I'm more of visual. I love doing the space planning, but it seems like the visual part is what really works best when we get it in there. So we do some move this over here, and we move it over here, and that's what works best, seems like to me.
And we have two of your clients here with us today for the presentation as well. So I want to go to you, Betty, first. You made a big move, what some would consider a dreadful move from out of state, I think, to an apartment here at Westminster Village. Tell us just a little bit about your experience with John and his company.
Well, my experience with John and his company was absolutely wonderful. I don't know what I would have done without him. When we were starting to move, they said, "Oh, they'll have a guy there that'll help them move your stuff up." And I just envisioned a helper guy that was coming in, taking in stuff up, and I had no idea to the degree that John was interested, or Jack was interested in actually putting things in your room where you wanted them put. And he even came out the day before with plans, and we went over that and decided, because I moved differently from the other gentleman, because I picked out the things I wanted to take and then got rid of everything else. My idea was to get what I wanted to take first. And so he came out the day before my furniture even got there, and with the plans, and asked where I wanted the different furniture put, and I told him. And so when we got there the next day, basically the things were put, the front pieces of furniture were put where I wanted them to go. And it was just, I had envisioned coming in and everything just being piled in the middle of the room and having to work and be so tired and everything, but it did not work that way at all. I didn't feel like I did anything, because he had his helper with him, and she was just a wonder too. I can't remember what her name was, but she was a wonder. And the first thing she did was put my dishes that had been wrapped in paper and stuck in a box. She took them all out, put them in the dishwasher, washed my dishes, had them all perfectly clean, and she even put them on the shelves, and I had to rearrange very few things of that. And she wanted to hang get pictures hung, and I hadn't even hung all the pictures when we had moved to start up. And so I got my pictures, and she got them all up, and every idea that she had of where they wanted to be was exactly where they needed to be. And she was just an absolute wonder to me. And so I had appreciated her so very much. And Jack had all large pieces of furniture where I wanted them to go. The bed, I had made up my mind. I changed one thing, and that was no problem for him to move, and he made everything just sound like it would just be so easy and no problem. And he really, really helped my move to my advantage.
Yes. And I know you love your apartment, and we were just up there visiting in it the other day. It really is nice. And you mentioned, free of clutter. You didn't want it to be too full of stuff, which I know that can happen. I know, John, you've experienced that, and we have too, with where maybe people bring too much stuff. I guess, how do you deal with that, and how do you work through that concern with families when you see that coming?
Well, I think the big part of that is focusing on safety and having clear pathways. Mm-hmm. And people, I think at a certain point, you need to enjoy life and not worry about having so much stuff to take care of. So we use our space planning and talk about their new space and go from there.
Everything needs a home, right?
If those big collections that you were talking about, a lot of times I have them take photos of them, save the photos, then keep photo albums, share those later with your friends and family. I have a collection, and I look at it more in photos than I do the actual collection. So photos and what you remember in here, I think makes up for not having all of the stuff that you have to take care of.
Yeah, sure. And we have, so another one of your clients is here with us, Marie Thies. Marie is the daughter of a resident. Her father moved in to Westminster maybe a month ago, right? Very nicely, by the way. We love seeing him out and about. But Marie, what comments do you have to share?
The best part about, working with John is just I was able to kind of relax and help with the process. It was pretty stressful. My dad was one of those people who kept changing his mind. I know, Kate, you and Rebecca got to experience that a couple times, but once he was ready for the move, I knew it was going to be an overwhelming project for us, and just doing it. And so you guys referred him to me, and it was probably the best decision I made. As far as the process, multiple times I would just text him, and he'd be like, "We got this, we're fine." He kind of, and it just fell into place. I can't explain it. Even my realtor at the end was worried that, the auction wasn't going to be done. And I said, he tells me it's going to be good, I'm going to trust him. And I'm telling you, the house was spotless for the next movers the next people to come into. I wish we could have videotaped my dad when he moved into his apartment, because he was kind of nervous at the end. And as soon as he saw it with his stuff in it, and he was the opposite. He didn't want to take anything, but John and I convinced him to take a few special things. And once he saw it all in there, I still kind of get choked up thinking about it, because he's like, I didn't know it was so nice. And I mean, he immediately was at home, and he's one that he likes to give me a hard time about stuff and be sassy. And he's been, once he got through adjusting, he's been fine. I've not heard any complaints. And I think a big part of it was just walking. John left the house. I took my dad to hang out for lunch. I don't know, we were probably away a couple hours, and John texted and said, "It's all good." And we literally went up there, and it was perfect. So it was a very easy process. And again, what he did in getting the house ready for the next homeowners, it just was a weight off our shoulders. I told him, I said, I will tell everyone I know if they have to experience this, because it was just such an easy process. And just getting rid of everything was overwhelming. We took some of the special stuff that we liked, but I just wanted to see I didn't want to just go through all that. It was hard for me to do that, and for him to do it and auction it. And it pretty much covered our cost of everything. And Dad got a little bit on top of that. So, we were pleased with how it worked out. It was perfect.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. I'm glad you shared that, because not only do we, have to help maybe our parents or ourselves through the move itself, but then what's on the back end of that is the house and what's left. And if you choose to put things in that order, I guess. And so so it sounds like, John, your company Caring Transitions does a bit of a clean out, I guess, after the fact. Is that correct?
Yes, we try to go above and beyond to get the house ready for the next owners. Just like if it was my family. I mean, we sweep, we wipe down things, we clean everything pretty much. I blow the leaves out of the driveway. I get rid of hornets if I have spray or I get stung. So we take care of everything.
Whatever it takes. And it sounds like too, for those folks who maybe don't have their family close, you kind of become family, don't you? And you take that place and help people through those final details at the end. I want to, I guess I want to kind of go back around if we can. And, we've shared a lot of information and some experiences on downsizing and working with Caring Transitions and some examples on how to just get yourself motivated and started. And but I'd love to hear maybe each of you just share one additional piece of advice, if you would, something you learned from your experience that you would tell another prospective resident of Westminster Village or really going through any kind of a downsizing process. What kind of advice would you give to them? And I'll start with you, Betty, if you would. What would you have to say?
Well, I would say to look at the space that you are going to have, and look at the things that you have. Decide the things that you love and want around you. Don't take anything else. Just take things. I use that floor plan a lot, and just brought things I knew there was for and that I would enjoy having around me every day.
Good advice. And Marie, as that supportive adult child and maybe speaking to other supportive adult children, what would you have to say?
I think not being afraid to reach out and get some help. My dad had lived in his house since 1954, and had never moved. And so it was overwhelming. And I just didn't know where to start. John gave us a plan of labeling things that were important to us, what's going to make his place feel like a home. I was surprised by some of the things my dad picked. I wouldn't have necessarily picked them, like the couch that he took. I'm like, I totally would have done the other one, but it's what made it made it home for him. And he just gave us a plan. And I think, if people are overwhelmed, they have to really reach out and get some help, because it's tough enough to do the transition. But if you can get someone who's very responsive, I'm telling you, it was like a military machine. I mean, they had it in and out, and it just calmed me down immediately to see it all done. And so reaching out, getting help, you guys were wonderful to work with as well. And you knew exactly what to direct me towards. And it's hard. It's hard on, everyone, the transition, but I can say it's been the best thing that we've done for him at this stage. So I appreciate everything.
Oh, that's so good. Thank you for sharing. That's good to know. I think that calms a lot of fears for a lot of people, and to hear that, but to know it's also doable, and Jack, you mentioned, you had two households really of things from yours and Bev's, and what becomes ours, and as we move in together. And but what kind of advice would you give, Jack, to somebody who's facing this hurdle?
Let me make one comment on the two households. We had 8 complete sets of china that we just thought was worth so much money. We couldn't hardly give it away. But our children, grandchildren, they didn't want it. But it was just things like that you got to work your way through. But one of the big reasons why Deb and I decided to move to Westminster is that we didn't really want to be a burden on our children in later life. And we knew we were getting on in years, and while we're healthy right now, we thought we would move here while we could still enjoy everything that Westminster offers. So I think the point I'd like to make it's never too early to start planning for the future that's going to happen. And just work towards making sure that your golden years offer you a simpler life and that your children will know that you have everything you need and they can live their lives without worrying about you. And I think that makes it a good deal for everyone.
Yeah, that's agreed. And sometimes it takes going through that to finally realize that the residents like you who say that, they were right? We hear that, usually after somebody moves in. I wish I had done this sooner, is typically what we hear. So you're right. It's never too late, or never too early, excuse me, to get started. And John, your team is the one who really makes it all happen and kind of pulls at the end. What kind of advice would you give to folks and families and prospective residents who are facing this?
I like what Marie said about reaching out early, because the sooner that we get involved and we can look and see what people have, and if we don't do anything else, then hopefully we can at least get them on the right trajectory and get them pointed in the right direction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I also just want to add, Betty and Marie and Guy were an absolute pleasure to work with. So I appreciate their feedback.
Yeah, it's absolutely. It's always good to hear when your team does a good job, isn't it? Well, I thank you all very much for your time. Rebecca and I are excited to have all this information so that we can now pass it on, to all the folks that we're working with who are contemplating a move to Westminster Village, and to be able to share it with them so that they can view it on their own terms at their own time, as opposed to us just doing this at, one time, one event. So thank you very, very much. Your advice is going to be shared with others, and and certainly if there are additional questions that people have as they watch this program, we'll make sure to pass them on to you. And again, I thank you. We're going to tack on, probably as we share this video with others, a special incentive that we've pulled together for folks that will help them through this downsizing and moving process. So, so lucky for them, we're going to help them out with that. And again, we really thank you. It's been great. Rebecca, is there anything you want to share before we wrap up?
One thing about this is just hearing Marie and Betty and Jack talk about their experience. I was almost in tears. It's just so nice to hear how relieved everyone was. I know I got to see Guy after he moved in, and his reaction was through the roof. And Marie was so much more calm. And I got to see Betty in the middle of the process and see the mess, but I got to see the kindness that John and the woman he had helping him with Betty, and it was breathtaking. So
thank you all very much again for your time. I hope you have a good rest of your day.